Dude.
Thanks for having me on Connections.
Yeah.
I like handshakes in general, like make any good point. Just like, all right,
like,
you know?
You know what I mean, right?
It's nice. It's like old-timey. Like,
How you doing?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still doing that.
And even like goodbyes, right? It's like, all right, I'll see you later.
Yeah, don't forget me.
So let's talk about how we're connected.
At Berklee College of Music, in a really interesting class, it was David Fuzinski's Microtonal Music Ensemble. You were kind of starting to be in David's band at that point, and we had Joval Bell on drums. Wow. Yeah. That's still like some of the most amazing improvisational drumming I've ever experienced. And it was just wild, like, that we were all thrown in this situation where now we're going to use these notes, and without any like cultural context. You know, it wasn't like we were learning Arabic maqams. We weren't learning like any of like the classical music that used microtones. We were basically just learning David Fuzinski's music to learn microtonality. That's a great idea. I think like ensemble teachers should teach you their music. I think that's really cool. He had a sort of punk approach to being a professor. I think he was like writing this line of like wanting to get his music played by musicians and making you the best musicians he could make you be in the process, which some people would probably mess up, like where it'd be just about like them like getting their music made. But I feel like I learned so much from having someone who was like deeply opinionated and really cared about us sounding like a band. It wasn't about like, well, make sure everybody learns and grows, which is totally like how I teach, like make sure everyone learns and grows. He was like, we need to be a good band, and you don't play the solo if you're gonna mess it up. And like for a Berklee student who's, you know, trying to become a professional cat, who wanted to be like a chameleon, that is a really helpful kind of teacher to have. It's not necessarily what's right for like more casual approaches to music or necessarily going to make you love music more. You need a balance to it, but it really gets you ready to be in bands, learn music quickly, deal with the pressure of having to do things right.
It's kind of why I went to Berklee. I went to seek out people like that who could just tell me like straight. I wanted the feedback. I wanted to work on stuff. That's why I was at Berklee. And Fuse kind of gave me that, like, you know, hey man, your groove's not that good. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. Like, what do I need to do to work on it? And he's like, just listen to some James Brown, man. James Brown, all right? But it's like he was just basically telling me to get absorbed and stuff.
Trying to help shape your instincts from the ground up. And it's so brilliant to just be like, listen to music. Because I think a lot of people tried to learn jazz without loving jazz. And I like had some times where I was experimenting with rapping before I loved hip hop. And when I was experimenting with rapping before I loved hip hop, everything just felt really off. And I never released any of that stuff. And it always felt like it just didn't feel right. Like it was even intangible. But once I started getting really into hip hop and loving it, I was able to rap. And it's the same thing with jazz. If you don't love jazz, like, you're not really going to ever play it well. The kind of bass player you are and the person you were at Berklee and who you wanted to become, it was the perfect advice for you. And I think that's, like, he was really good at picking, like, who are the people who are going to be receptive to this style of teaching? Because I had, like, you know, those ratings sessions. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, at Berklee, you're given a rating that's based on your sight reading, your improvisation, your technique, and your time, I think. And
yeah, there's four things, right?
It's four things,
numbers.
And it's a number out of 8. And you're given this test when you come into the school, no matter what you're interested in, you get the test and they give you your number. And then the rest of the time, it's up to you if you want to re-audition to get your number to be higher. And that number determines what ensembles you can be in. So if you had a very low number and you wanted to be a performance major, it was limiting because there were all these ensembles you couldn't take. Middle Eastern Music Ensemble, for instance, was the one I really wanted to take. And so I cared a lot about these ratings. A lot of what you needed to do to get higher ratings was get good at jazz. Like, that was pretty much it. So I became resentful of jazz because I couldn't get my ratings to be much higher. They weren't going up. Can you remind me why I started talking about this? Oh yeah, the James Brown thing. So
Yes.
So then I went to the head of the ensemble department, and I was like, why am I not getting my ratings up? Like, he listened to my audition because they record them. So the head of the ensemble department, he was really cool. I don't remember his name, but he listened to my playing, and he's like, you should listen to like Martin Luther King's speeches. And it was the same thing where he was like, he recognized that instinctively, fundamentally, there was something missing in my sense of phrasing. There was something missing that was on an instinctive level. And he didn't have the exercises for me because he barely knew me. But he knew that like one thing that would help me is to just absorb good phrasing and to look for it outside of music too. To look for like what moves us rhythmically in speech. And it opened my ears up a bit and it gave me some perspective. Of course, I also was like frustrated with that answer, but it was a good answer. Another example of that is, this was actually very annoying and has never helped me, but I'm sure, it was humorous, but I was in Dave Fuzinski's fretless guitar class, and he was going around at the end giving advice to everyone, which was very cool of him. He was giving real, like, specific notes to each student. There were like 5 of us. And, he'd be like, you just got to work on relaxing a little bit when you play so that you're like able to reach better dynamics. I think you could like turn up more, you could like be more. When he got to me, he said, Ben, you're like Earl Grey tea. And then he moved to the next person. And I just like, I've never understood that, but I remember him fondly. Like, I think of him fondly. I mean, he's not gone. He's still killing it. I just haven't seen him in a long time, but like I think of that and I'm just like, that guy was like, he's a real artist. He doesn't necessarily belong there, but he made Berkeley like fit him. You know what I mean? He's like a pioneer of this other way of doing microtonality. He really is a true artist in the purest sense. And being around that was great.
Yeah.
The double neck and everything about him was different.
I gotta put my tea down for this because I gotta use both
Let's
hands. I gotta use both
Shake
hands.
both hands. Let's go.
What do you call the TikTok?
Sweeties and cuties.
Yeah, I love watching your videos.
I really like your style. You have a way of just making me smile.
Did you draw as a child? or
Well, yeah,
or where did this come
That's
from?
a good question.
Man?
Yeah, like I like that question. Did you draw as a child? Because the immediate thought was no. But I did. I drew all the time. I just didn't get better at drawing as a child. But it was legit. And that's like part of like not everyone needs a hard ass teacher. Because yeah, I drew a lot. I made comic books. When I was in 9th grade, I made a comic book where there was a circle who was always getting like harmed by a triangle. And this triangle would torture the circle in all these horrible ways. And, I look back at who I was, and my role models back then were like Michael Corleone from The Godfather, people who were really good at martial arts, people who you'd be like, don't with that guy. He's small, but he's a psycho. That's like who I wanted to be. Like that was my idea of masculinity back then. It's not uncommon, and it's still a thing now, and it's fucked up. But like music was a legitimate way to be a badass for me. Like, okay, if I shred at music, people won't necessarily say don't fuck with Ben Levin, but they'll say, that guy actually kills at music. Like, he's weird, but leave him alone. He's actually really special. Because I was always weird. I was always a square peg, and I needed to have some justification. There always needed to be a reason so that people could like think I was cool instead of just weird, right? Like if you hang out with someone who doesn't make any sense and like everything they're saying is just like, okay, this guy's just still talking, but his music's killing. And you're like, he made my favorite album. Right. Then you just want to know everything about his madness, right? Or
Because he's an artist.
Yeah, but what if you're not? Like what if no one can identify that? What if they don't see it? And also, like, what if you're not a man? Like, because people don't call women geniuses very much, and they don't call eccentric, like men who don't actually have output. They don't call them geniuses either, right? So like there's lots of people and types of people who get left out of even consideration. So for me, you know, I had the easy path. I had, in terms of convincing people I was an artist, because I had parents who encouraged me to play music. I had parents who encouraged me to draw. They saw my shapes that kill each other and they were scared, but they didn't stop me. And they didn't even like bother me about it because they kind of trusted I wasn't gonna shoot up the school. Not everyone trusted that though. And I wouldn't have, to be honest. I'll admit it. I wouldn't. I wouldn't do violence. But I did a lot of violence until 9th grade. I had violence from 6th grade till 9th grade, or even earlier.
My years with that were very tough too. It was a lot of bullying.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm trying to pin down a lot of issues as an adult. Like, has to do
Good
with
work.
that era, that specific era, like 6th to 9th grade, where seeking, that's almost like why I started practicing music at a level to where, like, it's that thing.
Something to hold on to.
Yeah, it's like, well, at least, he's good at music.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's
It
that thing.
protects you.
Yeah, it protects you in a way.
Especially if you're late to puberty, and some guys are massive, and when they do jumping jacks in gym, their dong comes out of their underwear, and you're just like, what the is that? You just become so like, no one's ever gonna love me unless I shred. And so, and so I drew a lot and I shredded a lot, but I also like played with action figures. I did other unacceptable things, things that would take away from my dateability.
But it sounds like with comic books and even action figures, imagination.
That's what it was. Storytelling, imagination. Now as a 35-year-old with, my own resources and self-respect that isn't as dependent, still is somewhat dependent on others, but it's not like totally anchored to it. Now I can have that fun. And so I love Magic the Gathering, and I love like surreal movies and Twin Peaks and like all the things that like make your imagination go. Like I like surrealism that lets you figure it out or decide for yourself. I like all this stuff, and that's what I like to bring into my work.
Wow.
And visuals are really important because when people see things, they create associations. When you have different camera angles, they say different things, different lighting. If I tilt the angle and everything's sideways, something's going wrong. But we don't ever like consciously, like, unless you're a filmmaker, you don't consciously look at that footage and then be like, that's why I feel it. You just feel it.
You just feel it.
And that's the same thing with music and songs. This is not my quote. It's the Somewhere Over the Rainbow guy, but it's words make you think thoughts, music makes you feel feelings, songs make you feel thoughts. That's the great quote I've kind of lived by. And so, the music is part of a storytelling. The words are just another part of the storytelling, and the visuals and the camera angles and the lighting and the cartoon little sweeties and cuties and ducks, dogs, bunnies, and bears and birds. That sort of stuff, it's really good. It's like journaling, and it goes really deep for me. And a lot of people just see it as silly, and I'm open to that too. I think that's fun.
But people do feel from it.
Yeah.
I saw a big chicken. You'll never believe the chicken I saw. It was so beautiful. Its feathers were fluff. Its ears were long, and it embodied the spirit of my late grandpa. Grandpa was so funny. Now he's a beautiful chicken. Cluck, cluck, cluck. I cannot believe my luck. Is that really you, Grandpa? Sorry that I left you behind. That's fine. I enjoy that chicken life. It's incredible. You're just fluffing and clucking. We believe in chickens. We believe in grandpas. You'll never believe the grandkids I saw. They were so wonderful.
Each social media platform is like a different canvas with different parameters. If you're going to work on a canvas with oil paints, you're going to have a different sensitivity to dryness and wetness than like watercolors. And if you're going to make a short of 1 minute for like TikTok and that age bracket, you're going to have to think a little bit differently about what you're presenting than if you do a 1 minute YouTube short, because the people who watch TikTok are younger generally than like it goes, YouTube's the oldest, then Instagram, then TikTok in terms of ages. And you having an awareness of that is useful for communication. To communicate ideas effectively, it's good to be aware of your canvas. And so if one of the best ways to get your music out there is through YouTube, then we have to say, well, what are the parameters? Well, you gotta be looking at something. That's the number one. Number two, you generally have to know whose channel it is. Like, YouTube channels aren't usually anonymous.
Right.
They're usually a person. And sometimes they are, like science channels can be. But like, part of why Adam Neely's videos are Adam Neely's videos is because we think about the words Adam Neely when we think about the videos. And that matters. Like, we're hearing from individuals on YouTube. That definitely matters. Mr. Beast works partially because we're seeing him every time. You know, even though Mr. Beast tries not to necessarily have a ton of personality because he doesn't want to he wants people to just watch the videos and not necessarily think about him too much, you still want your guide, you know? And so that's a parameter of YouTube. Instagram, I don't know. TikTok, definitely not. TikTok does not care about you. Every TikTok video adds value to TikTok. Nobody becomes a fan of a TikToker. Well, that's not true. Generally, people don't become fans of TikTokers on a deep level. They become bigger fans of TikTok for bringing it to them. And so when I make my faceless cartoons for TikTok, that was the plan. I was going to make 10 of these, and it was going to be raceless, genderless, music about everyone. And it blew up bigger than anything I'd ever done because I'm specific. I'm I've got my like the way I look, my, whatever background I choose, whatever camera I choose, the fact that I don't shave the little bit of hair on the tip of my nose, like all the beauty standards, I'm weighed against all of it. And so that's a huge funnel. Like now we're getting rid of a ton of people who don't necessarily relate to just how I look. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how we are. I don't really generally watch super ripped punch guys, but I don't judge them,
Right.
So, but the sweetie cuties are really they're anyone. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to only be on one platform, and it's not a good idea to pursue a social media based business as the foundation of what you do. I know a lot of people do it. I literally do it, but it's proven to not stand the test of time. I'm in a transitional state right now because I've realized people are able to make companies because we're all we're a business. We start I'm a sole proprietorship of all this wacky shit, and I want to make art. You don't need to make money from your art. You just need time and not just time, but time where you're not constantly living in fear. So you have to have some stability and some time. I don't believe in the starving artist thing. I think it's the opposite. And so in order for that to happen, you don't necessarily need to make your living from your art. But if you're like me, and I have been, kind of cushioned my whole life from anything but this, it's very scary and seems like it would be hugely difficult for me to try other things. So I'm sort of stuck turning my art, twisting my art into a living. And so now I'm looking at companies that sell ladders or bikes or things where no one has to be famous and yet you can sell ladders and bikes.
Yeah.
We don't know we don't need to have 100 million views on a video to get somebody to randomly buy a sack of marbles. People sell marbles. Where the fuck do they do that and where are they advertising? How are they selling marbles? How do they still sell anything,
Totally,
right?
Totally.
And so I'm just trying to learn for my courses, how do I sell courses without being famous? How do I detach my living from needing to perpetually be famous? So that's my advice for Instagram. If you want to be strong and like follow your artistic instincts on a platform that is constantly, literally addicting you to conforming and becoming simple and streamlined and easy for the algorithm to pair with people, the best defense against that is to not need it, to not rely on it. You get validity from, Bar 55, and I get validity from
I would say any of your art.
Yeah,
I mean,
my
like,
art.
People
Yeah.
love your art.
It's true. I don't need large numbers of people
helped.
listening to The Light Is On You Return,
Well, just through your YouTube channel, I mean, you've helped people.
Well, you telling me that is meaningful to me, and receiving direct feedback really means a lot. The comments even sometimes mean a lot, although I have to put on a shield when I look into them, because every now and then you get some anti-Semitic shit or like whatever, and it just like makes comments be like, all right, I don't want to go look at, I don't want to care about comments. But that feedback's very important. That's what I was looking for with the Bar 55, because I'm looking like, where are the humans at? Where are the like people? Where's the real connection at? This is real connection, and it really is. And like that's important. We need connection. Because Jessica, my wife Justice Cow, her artist name is Justice Cow. Her dad died very tragically, and she made an album about it, and it's called My Dad Died. And it is just concrete, like, here we are going through it, and it's done a lot of good for her, and it's a super, super good album. I mean, crushing, but beautiful, and everything about it. Like, even if there were if it was in another language, the music is so powerful, and you would feel it. How is she supposed to think about Spotify Wrapped coming in and being like, your dad died was worth 1,000 views this year or whatever? You know what I mean? That is the ultimate display of like how little Spotify Wrapped should it matter and how it is. With Jessica though, she still did find a way to feel good about the like release, the actual release, which was she had a listening party. She invited like 9 people. And we walked in the woods around a lake and we listened to her album, and then we all convened at the end and talked. And that connection, that was what she needed. That was the balance she needed. She needed this strong memory of people appreciating the work and feeling it and being with her. And that's what we need. We need connection. So Instagram, YouTube, you could have all the success, you could have all the ups and downs or whatever. If you don't have the connection, it's just a curse. It's addiction. I'll say to all like the early 20-year-olds who watch this, it doesn't feel like sleep is as important, the younger you are. But I'll say like the main side effect of not getting enough sleep on the road is you develop contentious relationships with the other people eventually.
Yeah, because you don't feel good.
Yeah.
You just don't,
And you'll think it's for good reasons. You'll think it's because they're actually being bad.
You're just irritated more. Because you just like, everybody's more irritated.
I was in a band for over a decade.
Is this Bent Knee?
Yeah. I started Bent Knee with Courtney Swain, like, is a band. I couldn't care more about a band than I cared about this band. Yeah. And I left that band after like 10 years.
Wow.
And that was a difficult decision, and it threw my life into the pits. I had to find myself again and everything.
It's a lot to probably go through because it's 10 years of your life.
Yeah, it's like divorcing your whole family.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that probably would not have happened if we had been sleeping well the whole 10 years on all of our endeavors, because I know that every member of that band is a very good person, and if we weren't in the absolute worst like mindsets because of eating shitty gas station food and not sleeping, then we would have been, I wouldn't have some of the tougher memories, and we would have had more endurance. I lost my endurance. I lost my love for touring. It wasn't all because of like conflicts from not sleeping, but it was from the general sense that you were, as we said, like as members of the band had pointed out, it's the sense that you're on a ship that is falling apart and you're just making it to shore. And if you're not repairing that ship, it's just gonna go out and barely make it the next time, and then barely make, and eventually, guess what happens? It sinks. And that is what happened to me. So I can't recommend sleeping high enough.
Yeah.
You are not just the sum of your output as a performer of music and collector of money and compliments and a provider of joy. You're not just the result. You're a complicated ecosystem, and you're also a weapon. You can be used to you can be led to cause great harm if you're not handled correctly. I almost died.
Like from sleep deprivation?
From
or just
dumbness, from collected,
Yeah.
acquired over a long time dumbness. We were on tour opening for 2 bands that were really cool, and we were very dedicated to being on time for gigs. We're driving through Wyoming in a snowstorm. This happened to you too.
This actually literally just happened to my wife last year.
So they don't salt those roads. You're in the snowstorm, and we're just like, we got to get to this gig. We knew it was dumb. We knew this was a bad idea, and we spun and flipped. I was driving, flipped the van. Everyone was okay. This happened to you.
It literally, just last year.
It happened to so many people that same day. It happened to the truckers. It happened to the adventurers. Everybody. We were saved by a family that was on a trip from Mexico. They were on a family trip, and they picked us up and brought us in their car. And also these 2 people who work, I think, on oil lines or something. But they were really good at driving on ice. They knew all this, and they saved us, literally saved us, because we would have frozen to death, and took us to the last motel that was open. And yeah, it's common. And if you don't have the right brain for it, because we're all about punctuality, we couldn't just,
show. You have
gotta
to do the
make
show,
it.
No matter what.
No matter what, we're doing the show.
Yeah.
It is a absolute disaster of a mindset that we get from this, hyper ambition oriented life that we are led to live. We are so addicted to ambition and satisfying and pleasing and appeasing the cats, the big boys, the big famous band we're opening for, that we are willing to die. And you don't know that's what it is till you almost do.
Until you almost die.
Yeah. Shit.
This has been amazing.
Yes.
So
Good to
amazing.
talk to you and see you.
Before we wrap and head out, Ben Levin Music School. Tell me a bit about your music school.
Yeah, sure.
Your approach to teaching.
Sure. Well, right now it's 4 courses and lessons with me. The courses are, there's Getting Songs Done, which is about starting, developing and finishing songs and trying to help you address the pain points at each of those phases, because there's lots of ways to get stuck in each of those. Then the next course after that is Blender for Musicians, which is how to...
I have, by the way. That's actually how I learned Blender, was from this guy here.
It really works. It's great for musicians because it skips a lot of the stuff that you normally find in beginner tutorials in Blender that are less relevant to making music videos, and it focuses on the things to make music videos on not even necessarily fancy computers. Mm-hmm. And with the 4.0 updates, I'm going to be adding some updates to it too to make some adjustments with the UI. But then I've got Making Music for Yourself, which is all about finding a new relationship to music, new reasons to make music. And then I have Gitrongus, which is very difficult, very strange guitar techniques for advanced players who want to do something different.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, this has just been awesome, Ben.
Yeah. Thanks for including me on Connections.
Yes.
Number 2.
Number 2.
The poo number. Only one guy can be number 2.
Follow Ben on Instagram, YouTube, all the places. He makes amazing art. Thanks, guys. I love you, Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.